Welcome to Stop Overthinking, the podcast for overthinkers, people pleasers, and perfectionists who want to feel calm and confident enough to handle whatever life sends your way. I'm your host, Christina, a women's life and mindset coach, lifelong educator, and recovering perfectionist. Welcome back to the Stop Overthinking podcast. I'm so glad you're here with us this week. I have a guest with us today. Christina Wong is a personal growth coach, and she is deeply passionate about personal growth, which has evolved from a journey of seeking self-acceptance to one of self-discovery and authenticity. Her coaching approach isn't just about setting goals. It's about experiencing the journey with full awareness, making the process just as transformative as the destination. She's dedicated to creating a safe space for others to cultivate self-compassion as a foundation for sustainable personal development, especially in the areas of perfectionism, self-esteem, relationships, all anchored by their core values. So if you are a listener, you can certainly recognize that there's a lot of overlap between what we do, which should make for a great conversation today. So thank you so much for being with us, Christina. Please tell us a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to getting into this work.
Thank you so much for having me, first of all. My journey into coaching started with my own journey of personal growth. For nearly 20 years, I was a cake designer in the event industry, doing a lot of weddings and celebrations. And although I loved that work, I started to feel stuck in my personal life, especially around relationships. So that was my entrance into personal growth. And I sought extra support at the recommendation of a friend. And I thought, you know what, I must be repeating some sort of pattern here because I don't know what's going on. I cannot do this on my own. I can't pinpoint what's happening. And as I dove into that with my coach, which was almost 10 years ago, I started to notice that there were so many patterns around perfectionism and self-esteem that were contributing to what was happening in my relationships. And as I learned what those were, I learned to release them. I just felt so much lightness and freedom that came with that. And I felt called to share that with other people because I feel like it's such powerful work.
Right. And if you're willing to share with us, what were some of those patterns of perfectionism that you saw, and how do you define perfectionism in your life?
So for me, perfectionism really revolved around people accepting me. It was an attempt to feel loved and accepted by the people around me so that I wouldn't feel rejected and I would feel safe. And how it was showing up was partially my appearance. It was I can't go outside without makeup on. I have to always have a perfect outfit on. And it was also in projecting that onto my partners inadvertently.
Mm-hmm.
If they could just show up differently, then things would be fine. But what it actually meant was if they could show up differently, I would feel safe.
Yes.
It was so much more about me feeling safe and letting them be who they are. So I really struggled to both allow myself to be who I really am and allow my partner to do that. And it just created so much tension. It was like walking on eggshells. And so it just led to patterns of disconnection.
Yes, I certainly understand that and think many listeners can resonate with that as well. The desire to stay safe, to feel accepted and want some validation, and that connection is so common when it comes to perfectionism and whatever you want to call it, whether it's you have really high standards or you're a high achiever or an overachiever. I know that perfectionism is kind of a sticky label for some people as well here. So you mentioned that you really saw this coming out in relationships, and it's very common to want other people to change and somebody else do the work so that I feel better, right?
That's
That
right.
is so common. And we don't even realize that it's wrong until you get into some growth kinds of work. And so where did you start? What was helpful for you in this process to move out of these, unreasonable expectations?
Yeah. So I think the first place that I noticed real growth was self-esteem and self-compassion. When I was able to see that, wow, that inner voice in my head is not very kind. If I make a mistake or if I'm feeling vulnerable, that voice was, cyclically telling me you're not good enough, or what are people going to say, or what's going to happen if, and getting caught in those loops. So when I was able to kind of hold those pieces of myself with compassion and understand that, oh, wow, that part of me really just needs some extra love and not something I can give myself, then I would be able to also allow other people to show up in their imperfections and see them for who they are. And if we're a match, great. And if we're not, then it doesn't mean anything good or bad about either one of us. We're just not a match. So that was probably the biggest piece was self-esteem.
Yeah. And that can be some really deep work. What kind of tools or strategies did you use along that particular part of your journey?
So one piece was tuning into that inner dialogue. I think so many of us go about our day, go, we're on autopilot and we don't even realize what's happening inside of us. I talk to some people about, I don't know if you can relate, but sleeping. So many of us, even when we go to the bathroom, we're rushing through it to get on to what we need to do in the day. And so my coach had introduced me to this tool where when you're peeing, when you're going to the bathroom, see if you can notice your thoughts and just observe them without any judgment. So just observing thoughts without judgment, that was one place. And then following through for myself was really big. So if it was, I want to drink an extra glass of water today, or I want to make sure I get outside into the sunlight today, even just for 5 minutes, making sure I followed through for myself. It was like little deposits into my self-esteem bank. And then I was able to show up the same way in my friendships and relationships with family members and my intimate relationships. And I also became more aware of my boundaries so that I could follow through with those things. So it all kind of snowballs.
Sure.
Right? You take one little tool and then you build on that. And then before you know it, you're looking back thinking, wow, I am not the same person I was 6 months ago, 3 months ago.
And it really hit me when you said about taking time, even when you're at the bathroom. And I noticed that today in particular. I told you before we hit record that I just feel like I'm still just running around. It's the afternoon and I'm still in my gym clothes because my day just snowballed, and it wasn't me being really present with a lot of things. And so many of us, as being those high achievers or whatever we want to call ourselves, we're busy people. We have careers, we have lives, we have relationships, and I call it kind of going on autopilot, but it's essentially that you're not present. You're just going. And so I like that, to be able to just take a couple of minutes, and whether that's setting your phone down. I've tried, even if I'm waiting in line someplace, to not pick up my phone as much anymore, because I noticed what a habit that had been for me, whether it was a drive-through or in a store or something like that, that I just constantly, anytime I had downtime, looking at my phone, whether it was work or pleasure. But it's like, what if I just look around?
There's something to be.
Yeah. So I think because we are so busy, and wear that as a badge of honor often, that is such a huge turning point and something that we kind of have to work. You have to be intentional about it.
To go back also to your other question and what you just said, another way it showed up for me was trying to be everything to everyone, right? Because because I wanted to do that love and accept it, and it was, okay, what does this person expect from me? And what does that person expect from me? And I would lose myself along the way. And I didn't know what I wanted, what I needed. And so I would just be constantly burned out. And then resentment would build in relationships because I'm not speaking up about what my boundaries are or what I need. So that's where core values come in.
Yes.
When I'm working with other people and myself, is you can't be everything to everyone and you can't do all the things. So we really need to work on prioritizing based on what's most important to me. What season of life am I in? Because that's going to change from, month to month, sometimes day to day, and just checking back in with, like, is this getting me closer to the person I want to be and how I want to show up in the world, or is it pulling me farther away from that?
Yes. And we'll definitely get to the core values. I want to just pause here too, because we didn't use the word, but essentially what we've been talking about is people pleasing and trying to do everything, be everything for other people. Yeah. And what's interesting is when you are on that cycle, you don't even know what your own needs are because you are so in your head about what somebody else is thinking, what they might be thinking, what they're going to be thinking, what they could be thinking about you. There's like no bandwidth left. And so I won't belabor the point, but it sounds like we're being nice, like we're being kind, and we're trying to keep other people happy. And just as my reminder that it's so not good for you long term because you are suppressing your own wants, needs, desires, and when you're trying to do all those things for other people, you're not being honest.
No.
Like, I would love to be there to help you with the bake sale. No, you don't. You're lying. Or, sure, I can show up and do this thing or take on this extra project for you. And it's just not honest. So it's really not kind to anybody. And you can't build a true relationship if you're not yourself. Yeah. So let's talk about how you view core values and use them in your own personal work and also with coaching.
Okay. So core values are those 3 to 5 values that really are the most important things in our world that drive our decision. And if we have too long a list, we're going to veer back into that people pleasing zone. So, for me, for instance, growth is one of them. And so having a growth mindset. So making decisions that support that, and connection is the other one for me. So when I'm making a decision, is it supporting that? Is it supporting one of my core values so that I am living life in alignment with them? Because when I do that, I feel more at peace. I feel more myself. I feel more at ease. And I find that when I'm not living in alignment with those, then that's when I lose myself. And so that's how that mindfulness keys align with knowing what your core values are. That can really help make changes in your life.
Mm-hmm. When you have clients come in, where in the process are you talking about core values? Is it towards the beginning, or just wondering where in the process that is for you? And then how do you help other people find their core values?
It's usually, I would say, partway in. So we've kind of built the connection ourselves, and we've explored some of the things of the areas where they feel stuck or like they're not progressing where they like to. And it's reflective questions, right? So it's not me. I know when I started my coaching journey, I had some friends who were like, so do you just do everything your coach said? And so there's this idea that someone's telling you what to do, but it's really not that at all. It's somebody helping you frame things differently or explore things that you haven't wanted to explore, felt safe enough to explore before, and just supporting that person along the way. So whether they resonate with journaling or talking it out, really exploring, when do you feel expansive in life and kind of full of energy? What things, what activities help you feel that way? And what decisions or activities or situations do you feel constricted in? And tuning into those energies can help guide us to, okay, that could be one of your core values.
Well, and I know for me, when I first did core values with my therapist years ago, and she had given me a list, and I use this a little similarly with my clients, but it took me a while to really figure this out. And so I encourage my clients to take some time, especially when you're narrowing it down to, like you said, that 3 to 5. I even went down just for me to 1, just to see if I could. And for me, that's inner peace.
Okay.
And because that's essentially what I'm looking for. And to me, that means I'm in alignment. I'm working within my other core values, that, I'm with other people that are lighting me up or sparking joy versus feeling inwards, all of those things. So when we talk about values, because sometimes you go to professional development things, maybe even for work, and it's like, find your values and narrow it down to 10. And you do this exercise and then you don't think about it again, like ever.
Yeah.
I've talked lots about values as well. And I just can't emphasize how important it really is, because when the time comes, because you will get stuck on autopilot again, or just in busy mode or a season of life, to be able to come back and have that anchor that can help you to make some decisions. It can help you with your time, with your finances, with your relationships, with your energy. And I think what's also really important is knowing how unique they are to you. Because it's really easy to think that everybody else is just like us or prioritizes like us. And so I've loved that part of doing my job as well with coaching and listening to what other people's values are and how they work that out into their lives. And it's like, that's really cool for you. That's not exactly the same for me. And it's just that reminder as well. Everybody has to think the same way that I do, or behave the same way that I do. And they're not wrong.
No,
because when I want to be like, well, of course we need to do it my way, because I know what I'm doing all the time, right?
Yeah. I can relate to that for sure. Like connection being such a big one for me, remembering that that's not true for everyone is really fundamental for my relationships, because I need to remember that decision to not spend time with me is really not about them not liking me. It's just that is not one of their core values, and that is okay. And I loved why you use the word anchor. I often use the word compass. So when you're feeling that loss, it can guide you back. So very similar.
One of the things that we had talked about ahead of time was the importance then of just kind of owning your own behaviors as you are working on this process. So earlier we talked about it's easy to kind of point the finger or blame other people, like, hey, if you just behave differently, then my life would be so much better. Talk about what that looks like for you on this kind of healing from perfectionism journey, and how that has shaped who you are now.
Sure. So in so many ways, but to start, every time that we want to kind of blame an external situation or someone outside of us, we're giving away our power. Taking responsibility doesn't mean we're fully at fault for everything. It means we're acknowledging that we have the ability to respond to the situation, and how we respond is our choice. And that is where our power lies. I don't want to give that away. So recognizing that allowed me to accept and acknowledge that I am co-creating the situations I'm in. So if I'm disconnected from my partner, doesn't mean it's all my fault, but how am I contributing to this? What part of this can I own, so that when I approach my partner to talk about it, I'm not just saying, well, you did this, and if you would only do that. It's this is where we are. This is how I'm feeling about this. This is the part I played. I imagine that's had an impact on you. Let's talk about that. And you get a lot farther, both in your relationships and life in general, out of yourself when you can own those pieces.
Mm-hmm. When you're talking with clients about this part, is there resistance when it comes to talking about owning their own behaviors? And what kind of conversation are you having with them, to work through this?
So this is why self-compassion and self-esteem are such a big piece of the work that I do, because if you don't have a foundation of self-esteem to stand on, you cannot accept that you have played a part in these things, that your actions have had maybe unintended results or consequences, because we so quickly jump into, oh gosh, that means I'm bad. And puts our ego doesn't want to accept that we're bad. It will try everything it can to reject that idea. So if we can understand that owning our part does not mean we're bad people, and owning that part is actually a sign of strength, then, there can be a little bit of movement in that resistance when we work on it that way.
Right. And that's so common, I think, with perfectionists. Yeah. I certainly dealt with that as well. And talking with a therapist that specializes in perfectionism, that was an earlier podcast, and she would say, yes, it's so common. Either it's all or nothing, right? And so when we have to start looking into this shades of gray and our own responsibility, but that can be really hard, because it's like either it's exactly this way and meeting my expectations and doing it the way I think it should be, or it's wrong. And then we project that onto other people, then of course. So even being able to accept 2% of responsibility for the disagreement or the resentment that you have.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I didn't voice my needs and wants, and you were supposed to read my mind, but it's your fault, because if you loved me, you would be able to read my mind or something. So that's really common for us high achievers, for people with perfectionistic tendencies to struggle with. So it was a leading question when I asked you that, because I've certainly struggled with that. My clients do as well, that getting out of that all or nothing and that little bit of ownership. And it doesn't mean that you failed or that you are wrong or that there's anything wrong with you.
Right.
And so that, like you said, that self-compassion and grace, like I remind myself or my clients, I'm learning how to do this differently. I'm learning how to think about this differently. I'm trying something new. So of course it seems uncomfortable or unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And that's another big piece, is learning how to regulate ourselves through that discomfort, because if we want change, we have to be willing to try different approaches, and that can feel so awkward and uncomfortable and forced. And so nervous system regulation is also, I think, really valuable when it comes to personal growth.
Yeah. What kinds of things have you found helpful for that nervous system regulation, either for yourself or for your clients?
So breathing, obviously. I think so many of us are like, oh, obviously I'm breathing. But are we actually able to recognize, are we having shallow breathing? Are we able to take a deep breath before we respond? So doing that extended exhale is a key piece for me. And so it's something I start with my clients with. And then I like to work on vagus system strengthening as well. So for me personally, at the end of every shower, I go right to cold water, and I am not looking forward to it at any point. Breathing through that shows me I can handle this discomfort, right? So it's kind of practicing breathing through a physically uncomfortable situation, because when we feel defensive, scared, awkward, any of those things, our nervous system is actually having a physiological response. So learning and practicing to breathe through it can really have a profound impact in other areas of our life.
And there's lots of research and studies and things on that. But for you, how long are you in that cold water, like that you have found to be beneficial for you when you're practicing
So
this?
probably most commonly around 60 seconds, just 1 minute at the end of my shower, breathing through it. And I have found that it has made a big difference when, I'm having a disagreement with someone and I, feel so tempted to just dive in with defending myself. And it's like, oh, wait, I can take a breath instead.
Thank you for sharing those. What are some of the other tools that you have found to be really helpful for yourself or your clients that you could share with us?
So I really like to get people back in touch with their bodies. I am not a workout expert. I have not been a big workout person for most of my life, but just tuning into your body. So whether that's through stretching or meditation or breath work, learning to reconnect to our bodies. So many of us are so disconnected that we don't even realize when we're worked out. Like how many times, you might see someone, you see upset, so I'm fine. And clearly not so much. So reconnecting them to their bodies. So and mirror work. So it depends on what resonates with each person, of course, but mirror work can be really powerful as well. Learning to look at yourself in the mirror and say the things that you've always needed to hear, and learning that giving that to yourself is enough, which is similar to inner child work. So for me, even personally, there's a picture of myself as a young child that I keep nearby. So if I'm really struggling with something, and maybe I tune into what does that little girl version of me need right now? What is she not getting that she needs? And can I take a pause to listen to her? And if that's something I can give her instead of trying to outsource it to someone else, it's like, well, you didn't show up for me. How can I show up for her? So that's a piece as well. And journaling, I love using journaling and practicing gratitude, especially because a lot of us are really quick to be able to pinpoint the parts of our day that didn't go well.
Yeah.
And we can extrapolate that to our whole day. 10 minutes felt really crappy, and suddenly our whole day shut. So trying to tuning equally to the moments that feel really great, even if it's just that was a really good cup of coffee, or my bed feels so cozy today. Those simple pleasures.
Thank you for sharing those. And I will say, just my own personal experience with mirror work, I had a really hard time with that. And I think, again, people that are more perfectionists, and we have these standards for ourselves. And so we have all sorts of thoughts when we're looking in the mirror. And so being able to deal with that, whether it's body image or not, but really being able to make eye contact and to just look at that and to be able to say, hey, I love you and you are fantastic. And the first few times I did that, I was like, this is so weird and so bizarre.
Yes.
And I didn't want to stand there, and I, didn't want to do it. And even now, pushing myself there, because it's amazing, right? We're busy. We're on to the next thing. We're not present in the moment, all the stuff that we've already talked about. But, the mirror work is fascinating. And again, the different science behind it. But if you are really wanting to work on a certain aspect of yourself, whether that's, compassion, or, hey, you're doing a great job. You showed up today, and wow, my eyes look really pretty in this light, or in any of those things. It's interesting, I think, just to see what comes up for people to do some of that. And that's not something that we do in a coaching session, but again, in talking with other people. And I like to kind of push myself a little bit, my comfort zone. And for me, mirror work was just one of those where it was like, oh boy, this is out of my, there was so much resistance for me. And then you can reflect, like, why is that? So when clients come to work with you, do you do for one-on-one coaching? Is it virtual? Is it group coaching? What kind of experience do they have when they work with you?
So right now, my focus has been one-on-one coaching. I do offer in person, and if somebody is close enough that they can come in person, I highly recommend it. It's really nice to be able to just focus on that, session for that period of time together instead of being, when you're virtual, it's so easy to get distracted. But I also offer virtual, so I do that a lot.
And when people come to you, what are they looking for most of the time? Like,
Most often they're feeling stuck in some area. And it's usually one of the areas that I listed, whether perfectionism, relationships, self-esteem, and it's something having to do, even if it's work related, it's actually based on one of those areas. So I usually start with a lot of self-reflective questions, which can also feel uncomfortable because sometimes people come looking for answers, but the answers lie within. And so my job is to help you find those answers within yourself, not to give you the answers. So that can be definitely a beautiful and interesting journey.
yes. And likewise, and it goes back to what we said before, that we are disconnected, we are busy, and it's like, well, help me deal with this other person.
Yes.
Essentially, give me the roadmap to make them behave differently, or that I'm really struggling with certain parts of my life, but yeah, having to go inwards. And that's what I find so beautiful about coaching. Again, just the plug for coaching. Whoever is the right coach for you certainly can bring about some of those different changes. So is there anything you want to close with, or final topics or considerations, whether we've hit on them or not?
Nothing major. I would say to anyone who is considering coaching or whatever the personal road journey that you're on, be kind to yourself. It's can be tough. There can be some really tough days, and it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean it's not worth it. It is so worthwhile a journey, and just be kind to yourself along the way.
Yes, especially for the perfectionists that we have been talking about, to be able to quiet that inner critic in your mind a little bit. I think in some ways it's easy to distract or to push it away and pretend it's not there, but for it really to be softer or more compassionate or not there at all. So you don't have to even use the energy or the brain power to quiet it. It just really naturally is. Thank you so much, Christina. If people want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they find you?
I have a website, is yourjourneybacktoself.com. If you are a social media fan, my Instagram handle is @yourjourneybacktoself. Those are probably the two easiest ways to find me.
And as always, I will link those in the show notes so that you can find them quickly. So thank you for this conversation today, Christina. It has been a pleasure. Listeners, I hope you found some strategies or tools that resonate with you, or a takeaway that you were able to implement. And I would love to hear what that is from you as well. So thank you. And I will be back next week with another episode. Thank you for listening to the Stop Overthinking podcast with Kristen Odegaard. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else who would benefit from the message. To learn more about working with me and links to social media and free resources, head over to my website, coachwithkristen.com. That's Kristen spelled Kristen. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss future episodes. Have a great week.